This Emmerson Boyce Podcast is proudly sponsored by Stupid Tuesday, who are a promotional product supplier with offices in Wigan.
Welcome to another episode of the Emmerson Boyce Podcast, where with my co-host Jay Whittle. Today I've got some amazing guests on the show. My first guest that need no introduction whatsoever. The original legend of Wigan Athletic Football Club, the captain who led Wigan to the highest Premier League finish, captained them to the cup final, and part of that team that survived on the last day of the season against Sheffield United. He also went on to play for Barnsley, Portsmouth, Coventry, and he still plays the charity games like he's still playing first team football. The no-nonsense defender, Arjan De Zeeuw.
Good evening, Emmerson.
And my second guest, the Duke they call him. It feels like I played against him for my whole career, from Bristol Rovers to West Brom to Wigan to Watford. You know, obviously it was the club's record buy at 1.2 million, I think it was, and went on to West Brom at £3 million. I don't even know how much it will cost this day and age, but, you know, a young, hungry Nathan Ellington, it could be worth at least 50 million, I'm sure. Welcome both to the show. Maybe 60. Welcome both to the show. It's a pleasure to have you both here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So first of all, like, you know, we want to talk about how you got into football. You both didn't come through the academy route. You both have different stories of how you actually made it into football. Aaron, we'll start with you. How did you come across? Because, you know, reading your bio on Wikipedia, you know, it was an interesting start for you.
It certainly was. I sort of started when I was 20 years old. I started playing professional while I was a medical student at the university, and sort of played a few seasons at the first division in Holland. And then all of a sudden I got a phone call from an agent who said, I've got a club for you in England. Would you fancy it? And I thought, well, see if I can try it for a year, see how it goes. So I signed a contract with Barnsley Football Club, who till that day I'd never heard of. And and actually sort of signed for 2.5 seasons thinking I'll play a season and then I'll go back to become a doctor. Turned out a little bit different, actually. I enjoyed it that much that I tended to stay for 13 years in England. But it was a strange start to my sort of football career, definitely.
It must have been strange because obviously you was going to be a doctor. You moved to another country, playing was it in the Premier League or what division of Barnsley?
A championship at that time, and then I came sort of halfway through the season, and in the season after we got promotion to the Premiership. So I thought, well, I have to try this. So you're sort of standing in a tunnel with Gianfranco Sola next to you, who was sort of a legend to me. I thought, kind of like this. I could have more of this, actually. So yeah, it was brilliant. It was very unexpected for me as well.
What a great story, yeah? We hear about Jamie Vardy, we hear about, you know, other people, Ian Wright, that came late into the game. And obviously from yourself, going from a brilliant doctor to playing Premier League football in the space of, 2 years?
It's sort of thing, yeah. Things turn out a bit different sometimes than you expect. And it's a good lesson for me in life, you know. I'm not too focused on one thing, you know, something else always comes around.
And what about yourself, Nathan? You had another route.
Yeah, well, for me, obviously I came through the non-league route, but I didn't start playing football till I was in year 9 in school. So it was a friend of mine that was a good friend of mine in school that he was already playing for a team, and I went over for dinner at his house with my mum. And then I went into his bedroom and I saw his football kits and everything. So I was like, oh, what team do you play for? And he told me his team, and then he basically told me to come down and trial for them. And as you know, when your schoolmate comes to your team, you know, the manager looks at you and thinks, who's he? So I went, he allowed me to train one training session, and then told me, okay, that's enough now. So I didn't get to get in his team, but I went for trials the season after for the whole league. They had a league trials on a big park. So when I went for that, you know, a lot of the teams wanted me, and I ended up signing for one of them. And then within like 1 year, the manager there, he was like, look, you're really good. I want to get you down to Crystal Palace. So I went down to Crystal Palace while I was playing for my Sunday team. and basically it's like academy level, but they played me at the back, centre back. So one day, I just, them days you didn't have mobile phones, you weren't able to communicate like you can today. So one day I remember being at a bus stop, just waiting to get the bus. It was raining and there was no bus coming for a long, long time. So I just went back home and I didn't bother going back. I didn't contact anybody about going back at all. So that was a bit weird. And so it wasn't until year 10 in school, I really started getting into playing a lot of football. I went to Tooting and Mitcham, which was a team near my area in Tooting. I played there in the youth team, and then their manager wanted me to play for the reserve team, men's football. So it's the first time I got a taste of men's football at the age of I think it was 15, in my last years of school. And that's when I was thinking, okay, well, this is some different stuff playing against men. And it wasn't until I moved to Walton and Hersham, which a lot of my friends were playing at. It was the youth team. And they had a friend of mine, Gavin Holligan. So he was well on his way to going pro as well. So I joined forces with them for the rest of the season. And me and him basically hit it off. We won the league and everything. He went off to West Ham. And then he told me that West Ham wanted me as well. But I was advised at the time, believe it or not, to actually not go to a massive club straight away, because you'll be a small fish in a big pool and you'll find it very, very hard to get through. So your best bet is to go first team football at a lower level and work your way up. It's always better that way, because there's very, very few people in this world that go to the top level and then come down the leagues and then can go back up again. So I took his advice. I didn't go, and I ended up playing for Walton and Hersham first team. And then within about 3 months' time, Ian Holloway came and watched me. And within 20 minutes, he left. He said he'd seen enough. He said, it was weird. He said one thing that he noticed, and what I did, is the ball was coming over the top towards the defender, and I was pulling off the shoulder. And then the ball was coming, I was going to volley it. So the defender cleared it, but I still made the motion of volleying. And he said, that was it. Anticipation, expecting a mistake. I'm buying you. That was it. So that's how I ended up getting into the pro game. A raw 17-year-old player getting into the pro game. So
is that Bristol Rovers? Was it?
Yeah, it's a Bristol Rovers move. Yeah. I never thought of playing football. Again, I never thought that I'd be playing football away from home. So I never even knew any other teams apart from Premiership teams. Because you always, as a kid growing up, you just watch the Premier League. You watch all the players that you look up to. Don't look at the lower leagues. And when Bristol Rovers came in, I was like, where's that? And what league are they in, And then I started looking, and I remember seeing Bristol City in League One and Bristol Rovers in League Two, and I was like, I hope it's Bristol City, just because it's a higher team. So, yeah, but in the end, obviously, I was happy I joined the blue side anyway.
It's funny because I joined, I started football at age 10. So, I'm looking at my kids now who are quite young, and, everybody's saying the kids need to get into football at 7 years old and 8 years old and 9 years old. I think it's a prime example of you two both, and myself, where, yes, academy is a route, but it's not the be or end all. I think, what advice would you give to players then? So say someone is 19 years old, got released from a football club, what advice would you give to them in terms of, in your own route, in your own journey, your own setbacks, what advice would you give to them?
To who is it directed? To me or to Boycey? Both
of you. Aaron, we go for you first.
Sorry, you go first. Right?
Oh, thanks. No, the funny thing is, I always was sort of the understudy. I was always the one who, for the regional selection teams, I played non-league football until I was 20, and I was usually picked for the selection teams, for the regional teams, but I was always on the bench. So I was always sort of third choice. I might make 10 minutes of the game, you travel an hour and you play 5 minutes. So I was a bit disappointed, and in the end, I didn't feel like it anymore. The main thing for me was the pleasure I had in playing football was always there. And that's what kept me going, even though I knew I maybe wasn't as good as some of the other players. I loved playing the game. So I just practiced the things I wasn't good at. I just kept practicing them. And as you know, as long as you practice things, you tend to get better at them and more lucky with it. So that would be my biggest advice. Make sure you enjoy the game and practice the things. Of course, practice the things you're good at because it gives you confidence. But also, don't close your eyes to the things you're not as good at, and practice. But the main thing in the be-all is enjoying the game. I mean, I never had one day where I didn't like going to training. Even if it was pouring down with rain, I always got some pleasure out of it. And I think that makes that you want to practice and you want to be better.
Of course, yeah. What about you, Nathan? Because you had setbacks on your journey getting to the pro game.
Yeah, but what was funny is just hearing Arjan just mention things that were exactly the way I thought when I was young. Like, it's the love for the game. Like, the amount of times I went to the park, 6 weeks holidays of school, I'd be going to the park and playing all day until it's nighttime. And then there'll be times where I'd go to my friends and I'd be there, it starts raining. He's like, I'll meet you down there. So I'm going with one ball to a park with, just me on my own in the rain. I start shooting the ball, practicing and stuff. And then before you know it, it's like an hour and a half gone. And I'm like, where is he? He's not coming, is he? So I'm there loving practicing. And I'd go home. You don't think about it at the time, but as you get older and you look back and you think, wow, I absolutely love the game. And everything I saw in all these players that I used to watch, your Del Pieros, I used to love the technical part of him. I used to love Shearer, the way he can head the ball. I used to love all these players. I used to look at all these little things like David Ginola, the way he would turn on it, like nice and silky. All these little things. I would look at them. I'd go to the park and pretend I'm them and copy exactly what they do and try and become that good. So that was something. It's like the love for the game so much. And I'll just give you another little thing that I remember. You mentioned like work on the things you're not good at. What made me good with my left foot was I hurt my right foot, but I still wanted to train. So I went out in the back garden and I was dribbling, shooting, turning, sprinting fast with the ball, all with my left foot for about 2 weeks. I'm sure it was about 2 weeks. And before you know it, I was actually very good on my left foot because I spent so much time just using that left foot. Just for a 2-week spell, like it's like a microwave training on that left foot. And it actually, nowadays, you don't find many people who obviously can use both feet nice and comfortably, do you? They want to stick to one side. They love their one side.
Yeah. We lost him for a little bit. I think we lost him for a little bit. Yeah, but now, what you're saying is true. Obviously you work on your weaknesses, but work on the strength as well as your weaknesses, and obviously the love for the game. Just keep that passion that keeps going. So, Arjan, what are you doing with yourself now? More than anything, obviously you retired. You celebrated your 50th birthday. I thought I'd put it out there.
Yes. Thank you. I got some good messages for that, by the way. Thank you for that. No, I still work with the Dutch police force, believe it or not, as a sort of inspector or detective, as you call it. And I started managing a football club, a local team here, plays non-league, and as a head coach. So I've actually got sparse amount of time, I have to say. I could just fit this in between. But it's enjoyable. It's funny how I always thought I'm not going to go into management and all that kind of stuff. But during my time working for the police, it kept popping up. I did some training sessions, and I helped a friend out of mine who lives in America with the school camp. And hello. Sorry, my kids have just walked in.
That's no problem.
And I really love doing that. And I thought, I'm going to have to make some work out of this. And so I did my coaching badges and started managing this year. So this would be an interesting year for me as a first-time manager in Holland, being in non-league, of course, but I enjoy it. And
so the interesting one, how did you get from, because people talk about footballers and they get the same stereotype saying once footballers retire, they go and do their coaching badges and go be an agent, etc., etc. So how did you get into being a detective out of all the things?
Yeah, well, I realized that I loved playing football so much. I didn't not want to play it and be on the side of the pitch all the time. I've been in an interview, sorry. My kids just walked in. I'm just saying I'm online, so.
No problem.
So I realized I didn't want to be on the football pitch, not playing football. So I thought, no, I'm not going to go do all the badges and the management. I'm going to just get completely out of football altogether. And having a medical degree, my first idea was to become a doctor. But at the time, they were looking at the Dutch police for people at a higher education and doing a sort of fast track course into the police force. And it sounded a bit like a boy's dream, you know, being in fast cars and having a gun and all that stuff. And I realized that it was still going to take me a long time to become a doctor, and a much quicker route into the police force. And I thought, oh, God, I'll just try it, just like I did with going into England. I'll just try it and see how it goes. And I have to say, I really enjoy it. It's you see such a different, you know, we are being footballers, you know. Obviously, you have the good lifestyle. You're sort of being a bit of a figure in the community because you play for the local team and all that. And being a policeman, you sort of see the other side of society. Yeah. And it's interesting, I can tell you that. And I do have a fast car and I do have a gun. But, you know, it's similar to playing football in the sense that you really depend on your colleagues. As you do in a football team, you depend on your teammates. With the police, you rely on your colleagues, your other policemen and women. And it's a good togetherness, let me put it that way.
A good experience, put it that way. It must be a good experience.
Definitely, yes.
So Nathan, obviously retired from football and then you went back playing. Nathan.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, so you retired from football and then you went back playing. So what made you go back playing?
Obviously, love for the game again. The thing is, when you don't train a lot, when you stop playing, and you put on a little bit more weight than you want to, and your body doesn't get your body's not used to doing the same, you know, movements anymore, and the strain that it takes. And for me, being the explosive type of player, I was finding it hard to, like, you know, when you get older, you probably don't want to sprint like you used to. And I just still want to sprint, you know, as fast as I can and turn and do everything as sharp as possible. And I keep pulling things, don't I? So it's a bit of a nightmare. But it's just the love of the game, really. And, you know, having training, being able to go and train every day down in Knutsford with a few other ex-pros, that was fun. And it, you know, just brought back the memories of being able to train on a daily basis with like you're at a football club. So then when they started playing matches, you know, you're never going to say no, are you? So it's all about going back and playing again. So I just wanted to play. And
yeah, it's funny because obviously I just signed for Ashton Town. You know, don't know if you heard about that, De Zeeuw. You know, I just signed back from them, play a couple of games for him. You know, Mark's a fantastic guy. Obviously put the charity games back on.
Yeah.
And it was a case of me doing something for him, you know, because as I say, he does so much for Joseph Goal without no real recognition of what's going on. And, you know, all the work he puts through. And I just said to him, do you know what, I'll play a couple of games for him. He's done a massive video, a good video for me, which, you know, it's fantastic. And he texted me that night saying he's done his video, he's launched it, and the feedback he's got is absolutely fantastic. And he goes, he's almost crying because he's living a dream.
Oh, fantastic.
So, you know, how's your team doing? Is it the first season? Is it, you know, how's your team doing at this time in terms of?
We're still in pre-season. So we have our first cup game this Saturday. So that'll be a nice test. And I didn't realize, you know, how much work that goes into management. Let me put it that way. Making sure you get the training sessions all organized, but also making sure you get whatever you want to get out of the training session, you know, all the different aspects of the game, get that organized, you're defending, you're attacking, you're changing play, all that kind of stuff. So I really enjoy it, but it's a lot of work, I gotta say. But it's looking good. I mean, I've got a good bunch of players who want to win the league, let me put it that way. I'm not sure we can, but we're going to give it a go.
Give it a good chance.
We got a good squad, so we'll see. Saturday will be the first test case, really.
During your career, During your career, Jarrett, you had a couple of interviews where you said often as a player you'd speak to the manager and ask if they could change a certain part of the way you play. Will you be welcoming that from your players? I know there's a famous Sky Sports Goals and Sunday interview with Paul Jewell where you accidentally dropped the F-bomb on a live afternoon TV.
Yeah, there was a conversation I had with Danny Wilson. That was my first season in England, and in Holland, players are used to sort of go into discussion with the manager about team tactics. And I thought I could try that with Danny Wilson. He took that a little bit different than I expected. So that's where the F word came from. But I appreciate players sort of questioning me because it gives me an opportunity to explain to them why I want to play a certain way. And it sort of helps them to understand why we're playing that way and how we are going to play that way. So I don't mind it at all when players sort of ask questions and sort of question the team tactics.
That's great to hear. And Emmerson, Nathan, did you ever have times in your careers where you went into the manager's office, take the difficult plunge and asking, why are we doing this, why are we doing that?
I'll let Nathan answer that one first.
I think didn't really happen until point at Watford, really. I think that was the time where I had a very challenging time because the football that we were playing was really just not suited to the players that we had at the club. We were playing the most Route 1 football I've ever seen in my life. And, we were relying on the defender, Danny Shitu, to score goals and block goals at the same time. We just relied on him to do everything. And it was really disappointing because obviously, as a striker, you want them to rely on me and the other strikers to score. But because we were playing this, any time the ball went over the halfway line, it would be a throw-in into the box, get Danny Shitu up into the box, let him flick it on and try and score. And I just felt that was a very, very hard way to try and score all the time throughout the 90 minutes of a match. So I did go in. I did obviously speak to the manager, and basically he just said, look, this is the way I want to play. And what's weird is we got to the playoffs and then he said, we're going to play football. I was like, great, but it's a bit too late now. We can't just start practicing now and try and do that. So A.D. Brufroyd at the time, obviously, I like him. I liked him as a person as well. But just the tactics that he wanted to use with the players he had, I felt he got that completely wrong with the way that the players that we had. We had really good players there that technical could play really good football. They just didn't want to play it at the time.
Yeah, funny enough for me, it was Roberto Martinez. When he first came to Wigan, we just lost Steve Bruce, and everything was very, very defensive. Everything was tight, and Roberto came in and he wanted to play this expansive football. And I remember going to talk to him and said, "Look, Gaffer, I know how you want to play, but we're in the Premier League, and it's we've been surviving this long in terms of the Premier League and being tight." He said, "Boycey, this week you just sit on the bench and you'll watch." We went to Aston Villa. I think we beat them 1-0. I sat on the bench for quite a long time after that. So I learned from them, don't bother going to the manager's office.
Wow. It's a harsh way of learning that.
It's a harsh way of learning.
I think it's great to see the opinions. It's a shame in your case, Emmerson, that you was sent to the subs bench, but it's great to see that the players have the courage to question why a manager's doing this. And Ari, you were saying some great stuff earlier about how you only expected to come to England for a year to obviously focus on your studies and your academics. Did you expect your playing career to be as long and successful as it were? No, not when I started off. I certainly didn't. Like I said, I always sort of was on the edge of the picking order. And when I got an opportunity to go to England, I knew that the style suited me better. As a centre half, I like the challenges. I like dueling for the ball and sticking my head in wherever. So I knew I was more suited to me, but I didn't realise it was going to take off the way it did, sort of thing. After my first season at Barnsley, my half season, on the second season, I got Player of the Year, and we got promotion, and things just sort of went on from there. I certainly did not expect that. Let me put it that way. But it shows you that even if you're older and you didn't come through the academics, you can still learn. And one thing I learned when we got into the Premier League is how much quicker, faster, stronger, and more technically aware and able the Premier League players were. And I thought, God, if I want to have any success in that league, I need to be stronger, faster, better, and technically also better. But that's probably the hardest part, because you tend to learn that a lot when you're young. But even that, I got better with my left foot. And this is the only way forward, is to keep trying and improve yourself, even until you're 38, even though like I heard before, the sprinting ability does subside over the years, I'm afraid. Even for Nathan.
Is that how he is in the charity games?
He's still too fast for me. Damn.
Go on, Jay. Sorry, mate.
At Wigan Athletic, Ari, you've become almost immortalised. When people think of top defenders, you think of Emmerson Boyce. So they might have said Nathan Ellington, who didn't have a change of position as well as top centre-half for Wigan. But what kind of was your stand-up moments for your time at the club? I think a lot of fans ask about, obviously, you won the Player of the Season twice in the first 3 years you spent at the club. And then, obviously, you rejoined in 2005 and captained the side in the League Cup final. So what is your stand-up moments for your time at the club?
Yeah, the one, obviously, the Carling Cup final is a special one. But I got to say, even though I wasn't playing, I still sort of felt part of the club. The FA Cup final, I watched it from the stands doing radio stuff for the BBC. And I watched Wigan win the FA Cup. That made me get goosebumps because I still sort of felt part of the history of the club. But me playing, the season that I came back to Wigan, and the season we played in the Premiership, the whole season was sort of a bit of a dream, I think, for Wigan. The way we were at second spot at one stage, playing against Chelsea and Arsenal and the big clubs, and not really getting hammered, actually playing good football and challenging them. That season stood out by far.
It's been really great to see, and I think another standout moment that probably goes unnoticed is it was a game against Manchester United at the JJB Stadium, just noticing, and to say you let Cristiano Ronaldo know you was there is a bit of an understatement. So do you recall that challenge on Cristiano Ronaldo on the touchline?
I do.
What was going through your mind?
It was a sort of payback for what he did to Leighton Baines. We played the Carling Cup final, obviously, and he took the mickey out of Leighton. Leighton already had a yellow card, and he sort of chipped the ball up and kept it up a few times, sort of inviting him to come and challenge him. I thought it was such it's a way you tease other professionals who are serious about the game, and it didn't feel right for me. So 2 weeks later, we played at home, and there was a pass in space down the line, and I could have easily got it before him. But I knew, if I just take the pace off a little bit of my run, I can just get there when he gets there, and I could send him a message, and I did. It was quite I seen the picture afterwards, and I did hit him quite high. There was no intention of injuring him forever, and I luckily didn't. But it was sort of me saying to him, listen, respect your other professionals. And the best thing of this was actually that Gary Neville came up to me, and he said, well done, mate. I know exactly why you did this. He needs to learn. And it's sort of a gentleman's understanding sort of between us. And I thought, he hopefully gets the idea.
Did Cristiano Ronaldo say something back to you after you did that?
No, that was one of his first seasons, and he was still a bit theatrical, let me put it that way. He obviously didn't appreciate the tackle, and I can understand because it was quite a bad tackle. So no, we didn't exchange any words.
So in other words, you helped toughen them up. That's what you're trying to say.
Yes. I believe I got a very, very dark yellow from the referee.
Nathan, you've had some great moments as well as a football club. Wigan Athletic fans remember you as the Duke of Ellington. When they think of a top goal scorer, they think of Nathan Ellington. And I still believe that you hold the record for the most goals scored by a single player at the DW Stadium, formerly the JJB Stadium. So Nathan, what are your standout moments from being at Wigan Athletic?
To be honest, I would say winning Division 2 at the time. Obviously, the old Division 2, it's obviously League 1. What is it? League 1, yeah. So we won that with over 100 points. So to win that league, that's my first full season there. It was just a great feeling to win that. But there was one time which really did top it off, and that was that last game of the season at Reading, against Reading at home at the JJB, to cement our position in the Premiership, you know, to get that automatic spot and to score in the last, 15 minutes of the game to make it, was it 3-0 at the time? We just knew then we'd sewn it up, and it's just the best feeling in the world. You know, as I was young, growing up, thinking about, you know, wanting to play in the Premiership, and then that goal is that time when you realise I'm going to be playing in the Premiership next season. So, wow, you know, this is unbelievable. I can't believe that's the best feeling I've ever had in a football game, after a football game, days after a football game, like reading the newspapers, everything was just like unbelievable. You just think, we're playing against Man United, we're playing against Chelsea next season, we're playing against these boys next year. So it was like you've been pinching yourself to think, is this going to be real? Like, we're going to be mixing it with the big boys now. So yeah, that was the best feeling ever. I can say I look back, that's the main thing that I always look back to.
It's funny, just to add to this, because I recognize this, what Nathan said, got promotion with Barnsley and with Portsmouth, and the feeling all summer long that you're going to play against the big boys. You're going to be, you know, the program is announced, and you see your team standing up there against Man U and Chelsea and all that, and you go, God, it's really happening. It's fantastic. What a summer that is, eh?
It makes it even better when you obviously, where you've come from, obviously non-league, you know, coming from, starting the football late, you know, it's more like a dream come true. Like, you have to pinch yourself how often, you know.
I know I was, you know, like Nathan said, I was on the field somewhere behind the schoolyard, and I was pretending to be Johan Cruyff or Ruud Krol, who was a famous player at my time in Holland, and other well-known Dutch players. And then I spoke to a friend of mine and his little son when I was coming up through the ranks in England. He was playing me. And I go, God, this is fantastic.
That's the one, isn't it?
I never expected, God, what's happened there? So it's amazing. Yeah. Ridiculous.
Yeah, in that team, there's some characters in that team. As you got promoted, and obviously the Premier League team. Who would you class? Obviously, everybody talks about the characters and stuff for that and the influential players. But who would you class as the most underrated player that you played with? That's a trick question for you there. The most underrated player that you played with. I'll start off. I'll say Titus Bramble. You know, the year that he came to Wigan, and he was absolutely outstanding. Obviously, he's got people like to take the mick, and you know, obviously he makes a couple of mistakes now and then. But I think he came to Wigan, and you know, I think he became our player of the year. In the season that before he went to Sunderland, it was absolutely outstanding. And he was one of the underrated players that I played with that was actually better than, apart from Heskey as well, who were better than, you know, that I previously seen beforehand.
I got to join you on Emil and Heskey, because he was a big name, but still, I think he was underrated in what he did for the team as well. He worked so hard, tirelessly. Sometimes you wonder if he'd worked a little bit less hard for the team, he probably would have scored more goals.
Yeah.
Well, another one who was underrated was Eddie Howe at Portsmouth. He was one of my competitors for the centre-half spot, and I actually thought he was a better player than I was. The only thing with Eddie, he got injured, quite bad injury, quite early on, and it sort of killed his career a little bit. Obviously, he's turned out to be quite a decent manager. But I thought he was a very good player. Very good player.
What about you, Nathan?
For me, you know what? I don't know if underrated is the right word, but I've got two players in my mind. I've just tried to go through everyone thinking, was he actually underrated? You know, he's just really good, wasn't he? So, you know, I noticed a difference between, you know, like players when they deliver the ball up to me as a striker. So for me, when Nicky Eden joined the club, you know, to get the quality that I got from him, up the field into me, you just don't realize that balls can come like that until they start coming. So before he was there, I didn't realize that you could get balls like that. And then all of a sudden you start thinking, wait a minute, this guy's got a ping of a right foot and he keeps finding me with proper quality. It's always there right at my foot, always there right at the right level. I'm like, this is unbelievable. And I loved it. And obviously we had great players all over the park, to be fair. But like, that's something you notice as a player playing in the team. And I guess it's not something that you can notice really easily from the sideline. So that's one of the players. And then I think Jason Jarrett, he was one of the players where when he was playing and he was really fit that season, he hurt his knee the season we got promoted. But he was having one of the best seasons of his career at that point. And I was like, we were playing against, Premiership teams in the Cup. And he was just running everyone ragged, smashing everyone, and just doing box-to-box football. He was just always being the third man running. He started scoring a few goals as well. And I was thinking, this guy, man, in the midfield, there's no one that I would, I was like, you're Vieira. You're like Vieira. Just keep working hard, start scoring, and you're going to be the man when we get to the Prem. But then he got the injury, moved on, and things didn't work out as well. But he was someone that I really had high hopes for, thinking that he was going to go on to even much bigger things as well. So they were two players I think they were really influential in our team that we had. So if you want to call them underrated, that's what
It's funny.
Radar, we don't really know,
I gotta come on this one because Nicky Eden was also the one who introduced me to Yorkshire pudding and bitter in Yorkshire when I played at Barnsley. And like he says, Nicky had a fantastic right foot. He came up through the ranks in Barnsley, and the hometown fans didn't really appreciate his quality. And I would used to sing when he was running down the line. He used to sing, "Where's your caravan?" because he always looked a little bit heavy. He loved his food anyway, but we on the pitch really appreciated his quality of his passing. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
You talk about players who are underrated, but throughout your careers, I imagine all three of you have played against some top players. Has there been a name where you've seen an opposition team sheet and think, oh, I don't have to mark him again?
Yes, Thierry Henry, nightmare. When he was on the ball, oh my God. He was like an antelope against me being a sort of, slow bear or something, I don't know. But his movement, his technique, his pace, and he also had the wits about him, he'd chat you up and sort of start a conversation to you about it being such a lovely afternoon and how the home crowd is being so good. And before you know it, he sort of left you and scored a goal. And you go, I was just having a nice conversation. So he was a top player. When he was on his game and in the height of his career, he was very, very difficult to play against, I thought.
To be fair, I didn't mark anyone. So there's no one I marked. But in terms of playing against someone who you kind of notice a difference, for me, I used to always back myself to beat anyone in the air because I had a great spring, one of the high jump champions when I was young. So I was like, anyone I come up against, if I get my jump, I'll win that header. And if I get one-on-one with you, I'll fancy myself to take you. And played in a Premiership and then came up against Zeeuw and The Duke. So ball came in the air. I jumped as high as I could. I think I'm going to get this. Next minute, bang. I was like, huh? He's beat me in the air. Okay, great. So then I get the ball one-on-one. I'm like, I'm going to take him. And he took the ball off me. I was like, oh, my gosh. Okay, he's taking the ball off me. Now he's beating me in the air. What can I do? So then I was just thinking, every time I get it, I just couldn't do anything one-on-one with him. I scored 2 in the game, but still, it's like one-on-one. I just felt like, wow, this guy's too fast. He's too big. He's too strong. I can't really beat him at anything. I've got to try and do something else like pass and move and get it back again to actually get somewhere with this guy. So he was one player who stood out as a player. People like your Rio Ferdinands, it was like, you never really got in a fight with him. He's just like always nowhere near you. You're never near him and you just never get a chance. So it's a weird one. So
they're the best players.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're just always in the right place in the right time, don't have to fight you. And they're just there, so you never really have a fight to say, he was the best player I've ever played against. So in terms of sheer power, strength, everything, I would say Distan was one of the players, definitely.
Then my one was Ryan Giggs. He was. I remember this day where I was playing right back for Crystal Palace, first time in the Premier League, and was playing against Ryan Giggs, Manchester United, when they used to attack. And he was going for his contract at the time. And for the whole game, I just remember him taking me on. And I remember after the game, Ian Darrell was the manager at the time. He said to me, Boycey, just have a couple of days off. No, I mean, he gave me 2 days off to, go and find your confidence somewhere. So, I've been lucky enough to play against some of the best players, but Ryan Giggs, I've got no shame in saying it whatsoever. He was the best player I played against in terms of just giving me the hard time for the whole game. And as I said, I had to go and find my confidence.
He would turn you inside out, wouldn't he? He would turn you in, and then as you turn around, he'd turn you back the other way. And he kept doing that. I remember that. Obviously, I support United, so I'd watch him all the time. So.
But what surprised me about him, he could jump. He was quite good in the air. He got the ball, twist and turn, take you on, deliver crosses, can cut inside, but he could also win the flick-ons as well. And that, I thought, at least the ball's in the air, I can win that. But nothing. That the whole afternoon was a long afternoon for me.
Torture.
It was.
We played him with Barnsley, and our manager said, listen, Giggs, he's only got a left foot. He's a great player, only got a left foot. Just send him inside. So as we did, Nicky Eden showed him inside on the right-hand side, and I played on the right-hand side that day. So I showed him a bit more inside, make sure he's on his right foot, gets the ball on his right foot. And he just pinged it from 25 yards in the top corner with his right foot. Right, got no chance now. Absolutely nothing.
Here's one for you. You both signed for Paul Jewell. What made you sign for him in terms of, obviously, Premier League football, etc., etc.? And I think, did he sign you at second division, Nathan? Paul Jewell?
Yeah, well, I was at Bristol Rovers at the time. And I just scored, I think it was a hat-trick in December, the beginning of December, against Leyton Orient. Then we had Derby County in the FA Cup. So we was in, obviously it's like the League 2, isn't it? We was in League 2 at the time, which was called Division 3. And we beat Derby, scored a hat-trick then, and then scored another hat-trick against Swansea. So I had 3 hat-tricks in a month. So I knew I was going to move on to another level, yeah. And I actually met him in the first time I ever met him, obviously the first time I ever heard about him as well, because I never really looked at all of the clubs and all the managers. Met him in a hotel in London, and he basically just said, look, we've got a team, we've got a squad here. I just want to add you as a final piece, and I think we can win the league next season. So that was enough for me. When I heard that, and it was a league I'd already played in, obviously going to be, I didn't know it was going to be closer to where I was actually born in Bradford, but I thought it was the middle of nowhere. But at the same time, I knew that they had a really nice stadium, and obviously just knowing that it's going to be a step forward in a league that I've already played in, on a bit more money as well. So I was like, look, I'll take the move. So it wasn't really a case of Paul Jewell himself, because I actually didn't know much about him, to be fair, but it was just about the opportunity to go on and further my career.
And Aaron is saying he got, because all 3 of us got signed by him, I think. So, yeah.
My first time, obviously, he came to the club while I was already there. John Benson was the one who signed me. When Wigan was still in the second. Obviously, he passed away. And then Bruce Rio took over for a while. Then he had a fallout with Dave Whelan about the photo shoot. And then he suddenly disappeared, really weird. And then Paul came in. And, he's a no-nonsense type of guy. He's got a good sense of Scouse humour, a little bit sarcastic at times. Yeah. But he loves his work ethic, and he loves his players to work hard, and he creates the sort of team spirit between the players. He's a bit of a boss, he wants to be in charge, and he lets you know that he's in charge. But I enjoyed playing for him. There was always, he liked a bit of banter. There was good spirit always when he was around. And when he came to sign me second time, I had no hesitation really when he said, "I want you to come and play for Wigan. We're playing in the Premiership this year." And I was at Portsmouth at the time, in the Premiership. It's the first time I ever had a fallout with the manager. And, Paul sort of picked up the phone, rang me, and said, "Listen, I heard you had a bit of trouble with the manager. If you have any ideas of moving on, let me know." And that was it, really. Was not much. It's more or less what I needed at the time. So it was not much of a hesitation. I knew the club had done really well that season, getting promoted. There was a good spirit within the team, and it showed straight away, really.
I just want to mention quickly before you carry on from that, with you, Arjan, it was really not disappointing, but it was unfortunate that I joined just as you left, and then I left just as you came back.
I know.
So I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy at all, because I really wanted to play with you, because everyone was talking about you so much. And then when he's coming back, I was like, great. And then all of a sudden, I'm gone. So I was like,
Well, you had something to do with that yourself, obviously. No, but it's funny because it feels like I've played with you, but we've never actually played together.
No.
But for the charity games and all that, and it feels like you're one of my teammates, but you're not. It's weird. It is weird.
I honestly thought you two played together. Yeah. That's honestly thought. Oh, dude, I didn't even know that. I didn't even know.
We literally missed each other twice. Yeah. Which was a shame, because you were, rated as the best attacker Wigan ever had. And I'd love to train against you. I thought that'd be cool. Yeah.
Give him a kick, yeah?
Yeah, but also enjoy his goals, obviously. Yeah.
But I was talking to Sam Morsey, obviously we know about the Wigan situation and the situation that the club's finding itself in. And I was wondering, like you as a captain, obviously, I talked to Sam and this leadership skills, how we handled the situation, and how the team responded going into administration, points deduction, not getting paid. How would you handle that situation regarding being the captain and that responsibility? Because we all be in change rooms when things are not going right.
No.
And some players, don't handle it as well as they should have. And I had to say to him, I respect how he handled and got everybody together in that moment in time. But how would you have handled that situation, or how would you thought you would have handled that situation, if that was going on?
First and foremost, I hope I'm never going to be in that situation, because it's obviously disastrous. But for the players to be able to focus on playing the game and sticking together as a team, well, you're not getting paid. Everybody is uncertain about the future. It's for football players, it's also a job. It brings money in, and they've got family, they've got maybe kids, and so it's very stressful. And to be able to keep the team together there, it's quite an achievement, I think. I really don't know how I would handle that, Boycey. I honestly don't know.
People ask me that, and I'm like, I don't actually know.
I think the only thing you can do is focus on the game and focus on the things you can have control of, and that's how you perform on the pitch, how you train during the training sessions, and all the other distractions, about the finances and about all the backroom board stuff and all the disappointment for the fans. You don't have any effect on that. You can't have any influence on that. So I think the only thing you can do as a team is focus on the one thing that you can have control over, and that's how you perform on the pitch.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Exactly.
And I don't think there's any other way.
That's it. So Jay's set up a Facebook page, regarding mental health, and I didn't realise how much of an impact a football club has on the community. Obviously, we as players, we just go and do our job and go home and try and focus on the next game coming along. And when this happened with Wigan Athletic, depression started rising. And Jay, fair play to him, he's only 21 years old and young entrepreneur, I say he is. Set up a Facebook page for Wigan fans. And obviously the supporters club have done absolutely magnificent, raising over £500,000 to try and help the club through. Regarding that, Jay, I'll let you talk about that, what you've been doing.
I think the one thing people kind of disregard, well, not disregard, but they forget about football is a massive part of a lot of people's lives. I know to players, it's sort of a job for you guys. You've all had great careers at the top level of English football. And to be honest with you, I have to kind of pinch myself that I'm a lifelong Wigan fan on a call with Emmerson Boyce, De Zeeuw, Ellington. It's kind of like fantasy football in real life. But I think a lot of people forget that football is a lot of people's lives. people work 9 to 5 jobs, and then the only thing they look forward to is football on a Saturday. And for that to potentially go out and then lose that, it's a massive shock to the system, because I think we take football for granted, and this has taught Wigan fans that to cherish the moments we've got, because we might not have a club in a few months' time, and that's what's sad. And I wanted to make a difference because I had quite a few experiences with mental health through my family members, and I feel like it's time now we all come together and break the stigma attached to mental health. The stigma attached to men is a lot higher. Males often get criticised for speaking up about the mental health, especially in a workplace. We've heard the sayings "man up," and in this group, we kind of encourage people to talk about how they're feeling. It's an open space where they won't be judged and they can just open up. We've had so many fans come together, support each other, and I think that will make us such a special club, because it's nice to see that connection. The players have been getting involved as well with the fans, communicating, and I think it's just important to give the fans an opportunity to have someone to talk to, because with mental health, a lot of times people just want someone to listen to their stories, and with 100%. Stigma, a lot of people with stigma don't really know the meaning of it. So it's when you make assumptions about mental health without really knowing. And to break the stigma, the best things to do would often be, obviously, ask them about their mental health, ask them about why they're feeling this way. And obviously just remembering that it's just a small part of them, mental health. It shouldn't impact how you think of them. And a lot of people have been really brave in opening up. Emmerson's seen it himself. He's been great with sending video messages every now and again. And it's great to see a bit of a boost. We have group meetups at a local pub, and do like a quiz and stuff like that. You've all actually featured on a question at some point. So it's been nice to see. But I think the important thing to take from this is I think we're going to become a lot stronger from this, because we've kind of seen that the fans can rally together. We might not always agree who starts on a Saturday at 3 p.m. We might think this player belongs on the bench, this player should be starting, but we all are the same. We have different lives, we have different backgrounds, we have different situations, but we're all the same. I love Wigan Athletic. And I think in this call tonight, you've all got one massive thing in common, that you've all played for Wigan Athletic at some point. And one man I kind of feel sorry for in all this is Dave Whelan. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on Dave Whelan, any funny stories you can tell about him to kind of lift in the mood, because as you can imagine, the fans have been quite low at the moment. It's very deflating. Every day kind of seems like, well, what bad news is next, really? But there is going to be light at the end of the tunnel, without a doubt. The fundraising's been outstanding. So we'll start with De Zeeuw.
Well, I've just got 3% on my battery, so I've got to quickly get a charger from the car. Go on. I'm going to take my screen off until I get my charger. Go on.
Yeah, you're good.
So we'll direct the question to Harry, if you remember the question, and then move on to Emmerson. Then when Nathan's got his charger, this is the great thing about online interviews. Anything can happen. We've had kids, we've had charger issues, and it's great. I think it's more entertaining, to be honest. We just need a dog barking and we've got a hat trick.
Oh, I'm sad to say mine's just passed away about 4 weeks ago, so he's not barking. Otherwise, he would have let himself know. Now, what you said about I find it quite amazing, really, because initially I never realised how big a trouble Wigan were in. Obviously, they got points deducted, and sounded like that it was going to be a takeover. And only recently I found out there's been a massive fundraiser to keep the club going. Never really expected it to be this bad. I find it quite amazing that a club that, Dave Whelan, who invested nearly his whole life in this club, has brought him to the level he wants to be. And then the moment he sort of loosens the leads he had on the club, because he was Mr. Wigan. That's it, Wigan Athletic. It seems to disappear slowly. Must be awful for him to see what's happened to the club. So if he does listen, I hope he has the strength and still the wit about him, and to take the reins up again, because I think he's been the best that has been for Wigan Athletic, really.
Yeah, as we mentioned loads of times, obviously Dave Whelan has, brought a club all the way from the lower leagues right to the Premier League, winning the FA Cup, taken to two cup finals. He's left a legacy, and to see what's happened to the football club now is sad. But again, we got the Wigan supporters have actually done a more than amazing job in raising the money, especially this pandemic that's going on this minute in time, and people digging in their pockets and trying to help out for the football club is a testament to the whole town in itself. And I will always keep repeating that. But fingers crossed, something can happen. An investor will come in and save the club and stabilise it. And then Wigan, hopefully one day, will reach back to the promised lands of the Premier League.
That would be great, yes. One thing about Mr. Whelan, when I first met him, was obviously with the contract negotiations the first time I was there, and he just said hi to me. He offered to fly me in with his helicopter, I think to impress me. Then he said hi to me, shook my hand. We had a pint of bitter in the pub. And he said, listen, I've already told the manager what the maximum amount is. If you go over that, there's no deal. There's no negotiation. This is what it is. And that's what it was like, no nonsense. I once went in as a representative for the players to negotiate about bonus system, because Wigan's bonus system was still from the Middle Ages. And I sort of walked in and he said, hi, how are you doing? How's football going? So what brings you here? And he had this big office with a big wooden desk and an armored knight sort of next to the door, as sort of his guard or something. And I said, well, listen, I'm here to talk about the bonuses. And he went, listen, you lads are getting paid more than enough. I'm not talking about bonuses now. Bugger off, go and play football. That's what you get paid for. God, this is a tough negotiation. This is.
He was a tough businessman, that's for sure.
Yes,
he was a tough businessman, that's for sure.
Yeah, I managed to get on his helicopter in the end.
Oh, you did? Yes.
So we was, because when I met Paul Jewell in London, I had no idea what was going on. But the minute I was speaking to him, I said, okay, I'll have to think about this move. Because I was thinking, this is far away. And, let me just have a think about, all the logistics. And he says, listen, the deadline day is tomorrow. So we're going to have to bring you back up today for you to have a look around and then think about and decide there. I got a helicopter waiting for you down the road. And I was like, what? I got to go now? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, mum, come and meet me here. We're going on a helicopter right now. So she met me, jumped on the helicopter. 1 hour was in Wigan. I was like, wow, this is crazy. I broke the headset as well.
Yeah, as you do.
It's got the mic bit there, and I was like, moved it a little bit. And it went, I was like, oh no. So I just put it down. Like, oh no, I'm not telling him that.
I didn't do that.
I didn't get
it. Get a bill for that, Nathan.
So that was.
I didn't get nowhere near a helicopter. I was about to get to his hotel.
I was really happy that he made me the face of JJB, so I ended up spending a whole day of doing all of these kits, in all of the Sunday League kits, all the colours. But then in the end, every time I walked past the JJB, I'd see my face and my whole body cut out on every JJB. So I remember when I went back to London, I went home to London, I'd go to JJB, and I'd be standing right next to my 5'10" cutout of me. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is it. I wish I could have one, to be fair. I just missed out. I should have taken one from the store.
Oh, definitely.
Definitely should have taken one.
I think Dave Wheeler was such an inspirational figure for the town and for the club. And it's nice to hear all your individual accounts from him, because I think everyone knows he was quite a ruthless businessman, and that you don't be as successful as him if you're not, really. And I'm quite interested to see as well, is that you've all spent different periods at Wigan Athletic. Emmerson, you lifted the 2013 FA Cup. Harry, you was outstanding in both spells at the club you had. You captained the side, and you captained them to best ever Premier League finish we've had. Nathan, all I have to say for you is just goals, because that's the main thing. You did score goals, and not just score goals, but your overall play as well, the hold-up play. I was lucky enough to play against Nathan Ellington in a charity game 5 years ago. I was 15, skinny as anything, marking Nathan, and I think I wanted to cry when I got home, because he scored 5 goals in the first half, and I was like, I can't do it. He tried.
That's what he does, mate. That's what he does.
But I just wanted to ask, for your times at the club, is there any kind of unheard stories you've got which has never been aired before that you want to tell the viewers and put a smile on their faces? We'll start with Emmerson and then make our way around.
None really. I can't think. Just
spot.
normal ones. Yeah, I think it was their era that had all the stories. We was very much serious, but obviously, like everyone that knows Paul Sharner, you know, he's a character in himself, and with his hairstyles and his way of going about things, should we say that is always lightens up the change rooms. You had the Honduras boys who's always like to dance in the change rooms and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I think, you know, we had Nzogba, who was a character in himself and used to wear certain things just to, you know, designer stuff in training just to make sure to try and wind people up and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think their area was more of the characters that obviously the players that they played with are more characters than the one that we played with. So that'll be more directed at Aaron and Nathan.
Well, to be honest, but Nathan, you played with him as well, Jimmy Bullard.
Yeah.
If you play with Jimmy Bullard, there's always something happening. I mean, he's the only guy I've seen who've managed to kick up the corner flag and leave the ball on the spot. And he's actually sort of volleyed the corner flag into the 16-yard box, and the ball was still there. And then he'd just laugh about it, thinking, "Oh, sorry, little mistake," and all that. They'd use the painting in one of the hotels. They used to like to play darts, and they couldn't find a proper dartboard, so they used the painting in the hotel, and it turned out to be quite an expensive painting. And it sort of, you know, put all holes all over the face of the portrait of a woman or something. That's Jimmy Bullard. All this kind of stuff. He'd go into the trolley that we put the kit in after training, you know, where the washing goes in.
Yeah.
And he would just sit in it, and then would ask somebody to push it as hard as they can through the corridor and see what happens. You know,
he'd be naked in there as well, wouldn't he? He'd be naked in there.
Of course.
Out.
Aye. But that was Jimmy, you know, stupidest things. And he's, I saw him the other day. I saw him on a YouTube film or something when we were playing Everton, and he's eyeballing Duncan Ferguson.
Yeah, I see that.
You got to watch that back, and it's just hilarious. And that's him all over. It's all over. I do have to admit, there's one story that obviously we say Dave Whelan is a shrewd businessman, a tough guy, and all that. But there was also another side to him, because when my dad was ill with cancer and he'd lost one of his legs and he was not going well, we were playing the playoff final at Wembley, and my dad's dream was to go and watch a game at Wembley one day. And Whelan would ask about my dad, and he said, "Does he fancy to come to the game?" I said, "Well, he's going to struggle because of his health, and he's in a wheelchair now and all that." He said, "Nah, no worries." And he'd send over his private jet, pick up my dad and my mum, and flew him over for the game.
Amazing.
I didn't ask any; he just did it, you know. So he was a tough guy, but he was also a real person, a people guy. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
I can't do any wrong with me after that.
Amazing guy. Amazing guy.
I've got one guy. Basically, I got one story that I might as well mention because it was this is just a mad one. We was eating at the, you know, upstairs at the Italian next door at the stadium. And Jimmy's there talking to Mike Flynn, telling him, listen, what he's going to do is crazy. He's going to sniff Tabasco sauce. So he put the Tabasco sauce on and he went, he's like, oh, and his eyes were gone and he was finished. And he's like, yeah, give me my 50 quid, Jimmy. Give me my 50 quid. I was like, I can't believe you did that for 50 quid. You're crazy. And his eyes were gone. He was burnt. It's like his nose had burnt and everything. It was just so crazy. But they're the kind of mad things that they do all the time. You know, there's so many other things, but I guess it's too early to say them things on the live on a
yes, there's a few you can't mention.
Yeah. Did he ever pay up the £50?
I think he did. I think he did. I'll have to ask him.
No.
Thank you for joining us on the latest episode of the Emmerson Boyce Podcast. I'd like to thank my guests, Nathan Ellington, Arjan De Zeeuw, for joining us, and also my co-host, Jay Whittle, who's also got a question of the episode for you all your fans to take part in. So from me, keep safe, take care, see you in the next episode. Over to you, Jay. As we come towards the end of the show now, what's your future goals? Aaron is obviously going to coaching now, and what's your future plan? What's your this time next year? What's your future hold, shall I say?
Having a lot of fun in what I do. That's my main motive. And if it's with the police or if it's as a manager, obviously this is my first season, so I'm hopefully having a successful season. See what brings next season. But the main thing for me is having fun, enjoying what I do, and that's. I think that's what brings success. Otherwise, it won't work.
Exactly. You got to have love for it, whatever you do. To be fair, with me, I've got a new finish, Harry.
Yeah.
All right. Now, with me, basically, I represent players now. So I started an academy quite a few years ago, and a few of those players we felt were really good, and we could help them get further in the game. And once we obviously did that with one player, and and then a few more started coming, we thought, you know what, let's do this for real. So we obviously, me and my business partner, an ex-professional football player as well, we both ended up becoming agents now. So we look after quite a few, not quite a few, but we've got a little stable at the moment of a few players that we think are pretty good. Obviously, we want to push on and help that get better. And at the same time, we have our academy now, which we've also gone fully fledged with as well. So looking to build that up as well. So the two go hand in hand, really. But it's all football related.
Cool.
Next
Listen,
generation of footballers go.
Well, we'll keep in touch, Nathan. If I move up through the ranks, I can use some of your players.
Yeah, why not?
Some of your talents, mate.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you both on the show. Great hearing your stories and what you're going to do in the future, and also your route into football, which should inspire a lot of people who not going through the academy route, but starting football late or starting in non-league. So it's great to hear your side of the story and your journey, and I'm sure it'll be inspiration to many, many people. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you, same here.
And I've no doubt I'll be seeing you soon, whether it's a charity game or whether it is, we will definitely stay in touch.
It'd be nice if I get to play with Nathan for a change instead of against him and having to run after him again. That would be nice.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Right, you lot take care.
Take care.
Nice day,
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on the latest episode of the Emmerson Boyce Podcast. I'd like to thank my guests, Nathan Ellington, Arjan De Zeeuw, for joining us, and also my co-host, Jay Whittle, who's also got a question of the episode for you all your fans to take part in. So from me, keep safe, take care, see you in the next episode. Over to you, Jay.
Thanks, Emmerson. This podcast has been absolutely brilliant in being able to reflect on some of Wigan Athletic's greatest moments from over the years with the players who helped make it happen. We'd now like to ask you guys to get involved and tell us your own personal stories and memories of supporting Wigan Athletic in the comment section down below. I'd also like to thank Stupid Tuesday for being the podcast proud episode sponsor. Stupid Tuesday are a branding company specialising in promotional merchandise for businesses in Wigan and across the United Kingdom. They can brand absolutely anything with your logo or message, from pens and keyrings right up to clothing, glass and crystalware. It's ideal for if you're looking for a different slant in your marketing, or if you're looking for corporate gifts for customers or colleagues. Visit www.stupidtuesday.co.uk for more details.